Alhamdulillah, I've just passed the CCSP exam just a few days ago, and in this video I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know to pass the exam and provide you with all the resources, how I studied for it, my full roadmap and plan, and links to all the resources in the description, so check them out. So yeah, let's get started. Now the CCSP is a great exam, primarily for one reason. It's a certification that's come to bridge the gap and fix a knowledge problem that we had in our industry. As you know, cloud computing has transformed the way IT and technology works, and cloud security is a major concern. So you've got loads of cloud providers. I mean, the major ones are like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and they each have their own certification paths and learning and education that they teach. However, the problem with this is it's very specific to their platform, to their cloud services, to their systems, to the way they do things. And of course, learning one will make it easier for you to learn another, but there's still a kind of overarching general cloud security principles that aren't really highlighted in those certifications. The practices and what you do are there to some degree, but it's difficult to understand what the best general cloud security guidance is when you're diving deep into one company and how they do things, especially if it's like a smaller, more niche company, or you're buying services from a cloud service provider that isn't as well known. How do you ensure they're doing what they're supposed to do, and how do you utilize their systems in the most secure way? So although there are vendor specific training and certifications, which are great, what the CCSP does is provide a vendor neutral cloud security best practice education and certification. So essentially, it doesn't matter if you're using Amazon, Google, Azure, some random cloud service provider that no one's really ever heard of, all the practices apply the same way. Now, this isn't a replacement for those vendor specific certifications. They're still valuable and they have their place. This is more of an addition or an enhancement to give you more overarching general best practices for managing information systems within the cloud. So a quick overview of the certification is that it provides professionals with advanced knowledge and the skills required to design, manage and secure data, applications and infrastructure in the cloud. It's actually accredited and certified by some organizations. It's ANUB accredited, ISO AIC standard 17024 and approved by the US DOD 8570.1. So this certification is ideal for IT, cybersecurity, software security, just general tech leaders responsible for applying best practices to a cloud environment. It covers everything from architecture, design, operations, the legal side, service automation and orchestration, and a bunch of other things. So these are all the roles that the CCSP would add value to, and it does cover 6 different domains, and as you can see, it's quite broad and overarching and has all the fundamentals needed to work within the cloud. Just like most ISC squared certifications, there is an associate level and a certified level. So essentially, if you have 5 years of experience, you will be a certified cloud security professional. If you don't have 5 years of experience and you pass the exam, then you're an associate. Nothing wrong with that. A lot of gatekeepers and random people who have stupid opinions will try and tell you that being an associate is worth nothing. I completely disagree. I'm not actually certified in anything, but I've passed the CISA, the CISSP, and now the CCSP. And trust me, it holds weight. People respect the fact that you haven't got a lot of experience, but you've still passed really difficult certifications, and you'll still get opportunities, job offers, etc., as long as you've got some experience and you're doing other things to prove that you have that knowledge. Of course, being certified is good, it's better, you have more experience. But if you don't have 5 years of experience, don't shy away from the certification as some people will tell you to do. It's still worth getting, and then when you hit that 5-year experience mark, your certified status kicks in. And the most important thing with all of this is that the knowledge and the skills that you learn while studying is what is valuable. The title of CCSP, CISSP, or any other fancy certification title isn't worth much on its own. The actual level of thinking, the reasoning, the knowledge, the skills, the implementation, the stuff you're able to do to provide value to an organization, make things more secure, make things more efficient. That is what is valuable. So as always, just focus on the process, focus on the knowledge and skills, and don't just study to pass the exam. I'll be honest, with me personally, for example, I could probably knock out some of these exams in 3 months and 2 months, probably quicker, if my only focus was to pass the exam. But I spend at least 6 months to a year to really take my time and digest the content and internalize it and put it into practice and start having conversations and stuff about the things I'm learning with people, with clients, with other security professionals while I'm learning, to really deep and internalize the knowledge needed to become a better professional. I don't want to just tick boxes and get more exams out the way. I actually want this to add value to my career, and that's the kind of mentality you should have too with these certifications. Don't just rush them for the sake of it. Trust me, they're not worth a lot on their own, but the knowledge, skills, the way you can demonstrate it, the projects you've done if you've got no experience, or the actual projects you've done for a company when you have experience, those kind of things are the things that are actually going to add weight to your CV and be valuable and get you that bigger paycheck. There's plenty of professionals who don't have a degree, don't have any certifications, and are just killing it, especially the older ones whose certifications weren't a thing in the past. Their experience speaks for itself. Trust me, most senior people don't have any certifications, or if they do, they've let them lapse and they've just let them expire, because after a certain point the title means nothing. It's more about your knowledge, skills, what you know, what you've done, what you can do. So yeah, approach the CCSP and every other exam in your career with that mentality of knowledge, skills, understanding, learning, not just what's a bare minimum I need to do to pass an exam. A good analogy for this is like if you wanted to buy a new painting and you went to the gallery or an art shop or whatever, you found something, it's a beautiful painting, it's amazing, you love it, you want to buy it, you just buy it. You don't care what university the artist went to, you don't care what certifications the artist has, art certifications if there's such a thing. You literally base your decision on the skill and the technique you use to create the painting and how visually appealing it is. IT and security can be seen in a very similar way, where if you've got the skills to do something and you've done it to a really good level, people will pay you for the skills and knowledge that you have. They don't really care how you acquired it, whether you learned it on YouTube or whether you went on a boot camp or whether you went to university. Especially for areas like development, if you're a really good coder, no one cares how you learned to code. Can you code and build the thing that I want using secure coding standards, meeting our deadline, communicate well with the team, blah blah blah. Skills, knowledge is what's valuable. Just remember that. Anyway, let's get into the resources. So I'll give you a quick high-level overview of the resources and we'll dive into each one and talk about how to use them. So firstly, you need to buy a book. I purchased the official CCSP study guide, and it's a bundle of 2 books. One is the official study guide and one is the Q&A, question and answer, practice tests and exams. So I got them off Amazon. Link is in the description if you want to buy that. That's one that I would recommend, but you do have other options which I'll also link below in the description. Second one is the CCSP all-in-one exam guide. It's not a bad book, it's really detailed, really good. I recommend you check that out too. And then you've got the CISP CBK reference, which is another great book, also linked in the description. It doesn't matter which book you buy, just buy a book, stick to it and study it inside out. The next thing is, with the CCSP exam, there's a lot of offshoots of study and tangents of learning that you have to do, and a lot of the resources are available online for free, but there's a few must reads that you just have to know. Now the first one is the ISO 22123 document or standard. There are 3 documents for this. They're all available for free, and it's a bit confusing because when you read your books it will reference like ISO 17000 and something, but ISO actually have updated these documents, so they're now 22123. So just remember that, you got to read these documents. The next one is from the Cloud Security Alliance, which by the way actually partnered with ISC Squared to create the CCSP, which is very interesting because they're also a vendor neutral certification and training provider helping cloud services become more secure overall. But yeah, they publish a bunch of very, very useful stuff. There's a lot you can learn from them, and especially because they help to create the CCSP exam, a lot of the stuff they reference and mention will be found in the exam. So it's a very key resource. So one thing they have is this architecture reference guide, which is similar to the well-architected frameworks, which we'll get onto in a minute. But yeah, that's a must read. You also have the security guidance for critical areas of focus in cloud computing. Bit of a mouthful, but that's another document you just got to read inside out. And then each cloud vendor, in terms of the top three, AWS, Google, and Microsoft Azure, all have something called a well-architected framework, or an architecture framework for Google, who just don't like the word well. But yeah, essentially this kind of gives you the best practices, some good examples of like different cloud architectures. It's actually very interesting to look at. I was looking at the Microsoft ones and they have a lot of detail. So yeah, definitely read through these, get familiar with them, browse their website, go on to a few other bits, and a lot of the stuff you'll find is going to be very useful for your exam and understanding. And the last thing that you need to read, and I recommend you read this at least 3 times just throughout, is a document by Prashant Mohan, and it's called the Cirrus, CIRRUS, 8,000 foot view of the CCSP exam. Essentially, it's like high level notes that you need to keep and read. You know, highlights the critical parts that you need to remember, some things that are kind of hard to wrap your head around. It summarizes some key items for the CCSP exam, so you need to have that memorized, saved, printed out, whatever. You know, just keep it close to you, read it a few times, especially before your exam. So those are the first few resources that, in terms of reading, studying. Once you've done that, I do recommend you do the practice assessments questions from the book you bought, the official study guide, or the ones from the other books if you didn't buy that one. So make sure you complete all the questions in the books basically before moving on to this step. Now this step is where everything starts to pull together, and I highly recommend you do this. I've done this for the CISSP exam and now for the CCSP exam, and it's been the key thing that's helped me pass both times. It's a Luke Ahmed study notes and theory resources. So you go to this website, you find the CCSP course. It's brand new, literally dropped this year, 2024, and it's got a bunch of videos. You need to watch them all, and it's got 450 practice questions that are just amazing for like understanding and explaining why you are right and wrong. And that's the key thing. Like, even if you get the questions wrong, read through the explanations in a lot of detail and understand why it's went wrong. And I think Luke Ahmed does an excellent job of that, and that's a key thing that you need to understand at this point. Why are the questions going to be right? Why are they going to be wrong? What's the word or the part of the question that points you in a different direction? And learn to understand that. While you're doing that as well, Prabh Nair, coffee shots. I love hearing this.
So let's start with the first coffee shot.
He's got a whole CCSP learning playlist, and there's so much in there. I'll be honest, I didn't watch everything, but I definitely spent quite a few hours watching a lot of these coffee shots and him basically having questions, CCSP questions, and answering them, talking about why they were right, why they were wrong, explaining the areas and giving an overview of it, what you need to remember. Trust me, you don't want to miss this out of your study plan. And lastly, the Pocket Prep CCSP. Again, I use this for CISSP and for CSET and now for CCSP. It's very hard to find in the App Store. When you kind of just search for it or search CCSP, it doesn't really come up. I have got a link in the description, so check it out. There's also a web portal available online, so you can do this on the web app, on your phone. And one of the best things about this, I think, is like it's got some amazing explanations, breakdowns. It's such a clean, nice app to use. You can literally do 5 questions, 10 questions, 1 question, 200 questions, however many questions you've got time for. And they've got like these dashboards, these scores, what areas you're weak in. In the last 2 weeks of your exam, make sure you get this app. You're going to need it. So in terms of how to actually use the resources and kind of when to use them, and I've touched on it a little bit, but we'll get onto the more useful parts now. The first thing is the book that you pick. You need to have a good study method. You don't want to just start on page 1 and just start taking notes and reading through it and finishing a chapter, doing the question. Like, that's not going to sink in. I've got a brilliant study method that I'll talk about in this video. I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's like this scientifically proven method. And I use big words in that video talking about reticular activating operating systems and how your brain scans and picks up stuff on the page. But essentially, it's a really good study method, and I recommend that one if it works for you. If it's not, you probably have your own thing that you know will work. But yeah, don't just go page 1 to end of the book. This method will save you a lot of time, and you'd only have to go through the book once using this method. So yeah, I do talk about it in a lot more detail in a video that I will link, so definitely check that out. The second thing is read through the documents. Like, I can't tell you how many times I had to go through some random blogs and offshoots on the CSA Cloud Security Alliance website, looking at Azure stuff or Google or whatever, just to understand stuff. Like, I honestly can't emphasize that enough. Like, the book itself, I believe, isn't enough for you to pass the exam. You do have to go onto many different tangents of learning just to kind of get the information needed to pass. The Cyrus 8,000 foot view of the exam document is an amazing one just to kind of flick through and read often, because it gives you that high level view, the key principles, key things you need to know. Just constantly be going through that. It's very important. And then now, when you get onto the more difficult side of things, when you're actually preparing for your exam, this is where it switches from theory and study. You've studied all the chapters, you've done all the practice questions, you've done everything you needed to do, you've gone back over your weak areas, and now you're ready for the exam prep. This is like the last 6 weeks or 2 months. Buy the Luke Ahmed CCSP course for a month. Watch every single video. Do the practice exams, all the questions. Trust me, you need to do that. Make sure you're going back and learning stuff that you didn't understand. Make sure you watch the videos and the explanations. The way he teaches with the questions and the answers is very detailed, very thorough, and it will help you pass. And while you're doing all of this, Prabh, Nair, CCSP, questions, coffee shots.
Coffee shot.
Trust me, they're key. You will need them. And lastly, I would save the pocket prep for the last 2 weeks of the exam. Again, click the link in the description, but it's one of the key things you can't miss. So the pocket prep, I would do 80 to 100 questions every single day, about 10 days to 2 weeks off before your exam. And you need to go back over your weak areas and make sure that you save 50 to 100 questions for your exam day on the morning right before your exam. We'll get onto exam day prep in a minute. You need to make sure that you do the pocket prep questions, and that will include a lot of things, a lot of explanations, why you were right, why you were wrong, and it will send you back to areas of study. But at this point, you should kind of be skimming over, just reminding yourself of things. You shouldn't really having to be studying stuff all over again. But there are some new concepts that do appear in the pocket prep side that you won't find in the books, like the treacherous 13 and the pandemic 12 or 11 or whatever it is. So yeah, there is some guidance that's released about top cloud threats, and they've called really weird things. So yeah, why I think the pocket prep's amazing is because, like, you can literally do any amount of questions that you want whenever you want. It's accessible on your phone, and if you want a deep study session, you've got the full beautiful web app on the computer. So yeah, definitely check that out. Now, when it comes to the actual exam, there's some very important tips that you need to know. First of all, read the ISC squared examination agreement beforehand. Essentially, this is like the terms and conditions for sitting an exam. You want to already have read this. You don't want to be reading no legal paperwork stuff literally seconds before your exam. It's a waste of time, and I think you only have a limited amount of time to do it. If you disagree, you'll be disqualified from the exam. So yeah, just make sure you read that beforehand so you can just click through and agree, and you already understand what you're signing up to. Also, make sure you warm your brain up on the morning. Save some questions that you have not seen before, at least 50 to 100 that you can do literally an hour before your exam, just so you get into that mindset and mode of answering questions, looking out for things, spotting stuff, that kind of thing. Also, sort out your logistics beforehand, a week or two before. If you haven't been to the testing centre that you've signed up to, travel there, look at what the route's like, look at where you're going to park, how to get there, whatever it is, sort that out. You don't want to be stressing about logistics on the day. And make sure you get some good sleep the whole week leading up to your exam, especially the last few days. The night before your exam, you might not be able to sleep, or you might just have a terrible night's sleep. I personally got very nervous, very anxious. I was tossing and turning. I did not sleep the whole night. I literally stayed up all night studying, reading, panicking. Don't do that. It doesn't really help. It probably made no difference to me passing or failing. I probably would have still passed. I don't think I learned that much that night, but I was just stressed. And the reason that didn't affect me too much is because the 2 or 3 days before that and that whole week I made sure I was well hydrated, got some good sleep, exercise, mind was clear, focused on what I needed to do, on my target. So yeah, make sure you kind of charge yourself up mentally in the right way, look after your body the few days before your exam, just so you're operating at maximum efficiency when it comes to your exam. Now the big don't in this video is a bit of a criticism to the Bolson question set for CCSP. Please don't sue me, but I'm just being honest, this is my opinion. I'm not going to be revealing any of your secrets that you had in those brilliant questions. No, I'm just being silly. Honestly, I spent £70, $99 on the Bolson questions, and I just thought they're expensive, they should be good. Bolson are quite reputable for CISSP questions, and I've heard they're actually quite good for that, but I haven't tried those out myself. But yeah, so I thought I'll get the same experience with a CCSP. Honestly, the worst investment I've ever made in my life. I feel scammed. I want my money back. The questions did not help me at all. I think they were outdated. Some of the questions actually repeated themselves. You had some questions that were just wrong. Just wrong. Like they didn't have the right answer. Everything you study and have learned would have pointed you to a different answer, but yet they've picked a different answer and tried all their best to justify it when it just doesn't make any sense. There's only 450 questions for like $100, and also they set you up automatically for auto renewal for the next year, so it's actually $99 every single year. And it's like, who the hell is going to buy 450 questions for $99, not do them in a year, and want to pay $99 again the next year? It's just kind of a weird scam thing I find that like some companies do when they're just trying to get money out of you. They set you up for an auto renew automatically, and you just click through and agree and not realize it and hoping you'll forget, and then next year it'll automatically come out. But anyway, it might not be doing that, but I just had to literally double check the auto renew thing, and I thought, wow, what a scam. I just didn't like it. Money aside, the questions were bad quality. They actually didn't teach me anything. I'm being serious. Like, they probably made it worse for me. I probably lost knowledge doing those questions. Like, they were that bad for the CCSP. And when I did my research online, all over Reddit, all over the internet, it's the same kind of opinion for the Bolson CCSP question sets. People saying they're overpriced, they're not worth it, they're not good quality, which was a disappointment. But I just wanted to add this in because I didn't want anybody actually spending money there and wasting their money there like I did. I've wasted my money, hopefully so you don't have to. Learn from my mistake. But in all honesty, I've heard great things about the CISSP question sets, but I haven't tried them myself, but I've just heard good things about the quality of those questions, which makes sense because CISSP is like 20 years old and CCSP is still kind of new, and there's a lot more questions and content and information to be made about it in the industry. So I think there's that kind of gap of catching up. So if you're watching this years later, it might not be the case, but as of 2024, that was my experience. Again, Bolson, don't sue me, I don't have a lawyer. So yeah, last and final thoughts. It's a difficult exam, do not underestimate it, and be ready to go off on random tangents and learning, and take your time to really digest it. There's a lot of valuable content that you should spend a good 6 months to a year really deep in an understanding. Don't be that person who just passes the exam to pass the exam and have a title. Trust me, those people will get exposed quick in an interview. In 5 minutes, any security professional can ask you a few questions and quickly know you don't know a thing. I've seen it happen with people with good certifications, and then you just walk away thinking, did they fake? Did they cheat? How the hell did they pass that exam? Because they know nothing. And more often than not, they either probably cheated in some way or another, or they just crammed study in, did the bare minimum to pass the exam, and forgot everything straight after. So yeah, full disclosure, some of the links in the description are affiliate links, but these are literally the resources that I used. I might get a little kickback from them, but yeah, it's literally what I used to pass the exam. So please use those links in the description, support the channel, show some love, like, comment, share and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you're planning to take the CCSP, when your exam is, what your experience is like. Over and out, and I'll see you in the next one.